Hello everyone. I hope this message finds you fit and fine. This is Shashank Tyagi. Welcome you all. Today we are going to take one question, its model answer, and the topic is justice. So we are going to do justice with a particular question from a segment of justice. Okay. Key takeaway would be you will know how to structure your thoughts well, and if question is asked from a 20 marker, then how can you bring depth in your answer? So that is our core agenda. So just read the question. It says, examine the conception of justice in the critiques of communitarian theorists. Question directive is examine. So when we have examine and we have two core ideas given in question, then it must be clear that you have to expand on both the ideas and show the contrast between the two. That is how you examine. And as you know, that every examination should be done with the views of certain scholars, right? It should not be that you are putting your generic ideas. Since it's a 20 marker, you have considerable liberty, right? So you are going to talk about what are the core ideas behind Rawls' theory of justice, on which we saw critique of communitarianism. Okay, so generally if this question is asked in 15 marker or 10 marker simply saying communitarian critique on justice and 10 marker, then our total approach is different. Our approach is different. How? The point is, when it's a 10 marker, we know we need to mention specific scholars like Michael Walzer, Michael Sender, and specific points on which they criticized. That is how we do, because we have 150 words as a limit. But since it's a 20 marker, we have liberty to expand on the concept of justice, means what is its importance. We have liberty to expand on the basic idea of communitarianism. It means we are not just going to limit ourselves with Sanders and Walzer. We are going to talk about the importance of community, which was raised by other scholars as well. For example, Hannah Arendt. Okay, and in the conclusion, we're going to talk about the importance of communitarian idea in contemporary world. Okay, so introduction should have two elements: need for conception of justice. So this is Rawls giving his theory of justice and viewed by diverse eyes, and criticizing. And all of you know that every political theory you know evolve on the basis of criticism, right? Brief link between Rawls' idea as versus communitarianism. Then in the body part, it should have three broad components. One, we are talking about communitarianism from the base, from the perspective of scholars who were not necessarily criticizing Rawls, but what they were talking about the importance of communitarian perspective. We are going to use Hannah and Charles Taylor, and then we are going to bring comparison with liberalism. And why is that? Because all of you know that when we talk about Rawls, the core idea of Rawls' theory of justice was based on liberalism, right? We are going to bring this comparison: Sandals versus Rawls, Walzer versus Rawls. In Sandals, good prior to rights, or as per Rawls, rights prior to goods. We are going to bring this debate. In Walzer, we are going to talk about the concept of complex equality, how we cannot have universal idea of justice, because giving justice is also a complex phenomenon. Then in the conclusion, we can simply connect with how in multicultural societies communitarian perspective is very much required. Coming to the exact answer, statements which you can use. So you can start with how justice is establishing a rational order, because whenever we have a rational order, that is when a community will feel satisfied and we are going to have a stable political system. That is why justice is a moral virtue. So you are going to talk about its social utility and how it is necessary for fostering and protecting human liberty. Then you can say that justice is actually a concept of normative political philosophy. And when it comes to Rawls' theory of justice, actually it was considered as golden age of theorizing about justice. Because what Rawls was doing, Rawls was saying that there can be a universal idea of justice. one idea of justice which can be implemented everywhere. So it was considered as golden age. Then you are going to talk about communitarian perspective, which gives preference to community over individual. Okay. Then what you can do, just bring two scholars in place and just show their views. So what Hannah and Charles Taylor were saying, they were saying individuals are always embedded in networks of social relationships. So we cannot have a self which is free from society. Our self has connection to network of social relationship. One way or other, we have impact of social relationships. So we are never socially isolated. That is the core idea of communitarians, right? But when it comes to liberals, they have the opposite idea. Means they talk about individual, distinct from society. They talk about individual rights over community rights. So this difference you are going to show by the using Hannah and Charles Taylor. So then what is the liberalism idea? That individual is atomistic in nature. But when it comes to communitarians, what they say that liberal conception of individual as an atom is abstract. You cannot find any man which is independent of his or her social conditions. We are indoctrinated. Our views are, based on social conditions which we were in or are in, right? So you are going to talk about this point that communitarians say that that's a colossal mistake which liberals are doing. Now coming to this part where you compare Michael Sandel's with lib Rawls, then Walzer with Rawls. So your structure can be just say what Michael Sandel was saying. So his book was Liberalism and Limits of Justice. I should advise you, whenever you use a prominent scholar like Michael Sandel, Walzer, and specifically question is asking about the critique, then you should, if you mention the book, it increases legitimacy of your answer. So similarly, you should remember Michael Walzer's book, Sphere of Justice, and here Liberalism and Limits of Justice. So just bring the core idea what he was saying. He was saying idea of good should precede rights. Means what is good for community should be given more priority over what is rights. What is right? Means right means what are individual rights. So individual rights can be sidelines for good of community. It should be preferred. Whereas when it comes to Rawls was saying no, rights are prior to good. Give rights to individuals. And you should be clear that why Rawls was having this idea, because liberalism is based on the core idea that man is rational. If man is rational, then man has all the faculties in the mind that they can decide what is good for them. So that is why give men their right and they will decide what is good for them. That was the Rawls idea. Okay. Then you can say what Sandel was saying. He said state cannot be neutral. A state cannot just sit and give rights to the people and then they can decide what is good for them. No, state cannot do that. A state has to promote the conception of good which is beneficial to society. State cannot be neutral. State has to take a stand, right? This is good for the community. Because he says that justice is not an art of integration, it's a differentiation. You cannot say that okay, we can consider what are the individual rights and collectively that then we can decide okay what is right for community. It can be otherwise. It may be possible what some people are you know considering as good for them using their individual right may not be good for overall community. So we have to differentiate between these. So Sandel called that Rawls is highly individualistic and biased for describing concept of absolute justice based on value system of USA. So Sandel saw although Rawls is saying that his concept of justice is universal, no, actually it is based on value system of USA because in USA society is based on this idea of individualism. People taking into consideration what is best for me before what is best for community. But Sandel was saying there are other communities in the world in which the basis of society is that people think about what is best for community and then they talk about what is best for them. Actually, society is working in such a way that they are bound to act in the way, even if they have self-interest, but they know our society works in this particular way. When it comes to Michael Walzer, you are going to talk about sphere of justice, and you are going to say, he said that politics of differences and neglecting it will lead to homogenization. If you don't consider the differences and you talk about homogenization, then it will be detrimental for the concept of justice. What Rawls was saying, one universal idea applicable to all. Michael Walzer was saying it is homogenization. You are thinking everyone is same. You are thinking that one size fits all. That is not the reality. Your idea of justice of USA cannot be replicated in Afghanistan. Society is different. So you should recognize the politics, differences. You cannot neglect them, because if you neglect, then you are against the idea of justice, because what you are propounding as justice may not be justice for them. Then if you are pushing your idea of justice, then you are doing injustice with them. So he gave the concept of complex equality. He said different goods ought to be distributed differently. Even if we are talking about a particular society, in that in different spheres we have to use different ways of justice. The way we are postulating the concept of justice in education cannot be reflected in health or other areas. Employment, we have to look into the particular sphere. What is the need? How people are suffering in this particular area? What kind of help is required? Who should be given preference? If you are giving preference to a particular set of people in a particular area, that doesn't mean if you give those people preference in other areas, then you can do justice. No, it may be possible giving them preference in a particular area is going to enable them to excel in other areas. So if you give preference in other areas also, then what is going to happen? Other people are going to feel that that is injustice, right? So you are going to put forward the views of Walzer. Then you can say different sphere of rights have different formula for justice, as no grand theory of justice exists. That is what Walzer said. Then you are going to say how Rawls, reformed his ideas in his second book, Political Liberalism. He responded to his communitarian critics by accommodating such concern. Then he accommodated some concern. So hence, concept of justice by communitarian was significant. That is why Rawls accommodated these criticisms. This shows the importance of communitarian critique, right? And that's why I said in the start that political theory evolve on criticisms, right? In alignment with the globalized times where multicultural societies are gaining ground, we need communitarianism. We need to think about justice on the basis of diverse communities. So that is all from my side today. So let's meet in another video. Till then, keep learning, keep growing, and do tell if you're getting value from these sessions, and do share with your peers who may get benefit from these sessions. Okay. So till then, keep learning, keep taking.